Well, what will be a successful season and what will be a failure season for the Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies, Oklahoma Sooners, and Oklahoma State Cowboys? We discuss that in today's episode of The Three Technique.
One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. No, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Well, welcome in one and all to another fine episode of the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and Joes. I'm joined by Garrett, and I'm very relieved to be joined by Garrett because his little box disappeared during that intro, and I couldn't see him, and I thought he might have lost, and I was just coming in blind after that intro, man. Like, I had no idea if I was going to see your face when it went away or not, but here you are.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to be back on the pod. Obviously missed the last one. Appreciate you guys giving me the day off for Father's Day, but super happy to kind of join you right here. Trey, that's a familiar looking background. Looks pretty nice back there. Where am I finding you tonight, good sir?
Well, we are in the new Casa del Reeves, freshly minted. So
Woo!
we are locked and loaded in the new digs and couldn't be more happy. So shout out to Garrett and his lovely wife for helping us to move some boxes last week and making the drive down. It was really appreciated. So yeah, we're getting the studio set up. It's not quite ready yet, but the new backdrop is coming soon. It's going to be really, really fun. I'm excited to have that. So yeah, man, things are looking up. Things are looking up for us over here at our respective Three Tech HQs. We got a third member of our team getting married this week.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot going on, but we are also really excited to get you guys ready for the upcoming football season. If you missed the last show, Mitch and I talked about 4 teams and just discussed what's a successful season. We're doing the same thing tonight. We got another 4-pack. I mentioned it off the top. We're going north and south of the Red River for the in-state rivalries, and we're going to talk about what does a successful season constitute this year in each of those respective programs. Before that, Garrett, let me tell the people about Home Field Apparel. They are our proud partners. They are the good brand. If you don't know them by now, you should if you call yourself a college football fan. They've got all the amazing logos. Garrett, the drop this week is the Delta State Fighting Okra. I can't wait for that. I don't know about you. I might need to get my hands on some
Fighting Okra. We love it.
Fun. I know I actually worked with someone that is a proud alumnus of Delta State. So
All right.
shout out Kelly. She'll have to
I didn't entirely believe it was a real place, but now that you know someone, I guess
she
I'll
had
have
the
to believe it.
flag in her classroom that I taught a couple
Right.
doors down from. So shout out Kelly. Shout out to everybody in her family. Maybe they can get some merch with the code 3TechPod, 15% off. Get you Fighting Okra merch. Get you some other obscure mascots that are dropping this summer, or get your favorite team, whatever floats your boat. Get ready for this college football season at Home Field Apparel. And Garrett, we are still running our promotion. If you go to our Twitter, check the pinned thread, you'll find 4 surveys. We want you to fill those out. We want you to tell us what order are the teams going to finish in each of the Power 4 conferences. You don't have to be correct. You can be completely wrong, and you still get entered to win a $150 gift card to our friends at Home Field Apparel, plus a special bonus second prize, as Garrett is pulling up the thread right now. There it is at the top of our Twitter if you're watching on YouTube. Yeah, just click those links. You'll find all 4 of them in that thread. 4 entries is 4 chances to win. Again, don't have to be right. You could be completely wrong. Research it. Don't research it. Just throw something at the wall. Love pick, hate pick, whatever you want to do. You get entered to win. All we need is your email address and those predictions. And Garrett, we also have some big news. We released our first Substack article this week. So it's completely free. You can sign up at that link. You can drop your email. We will add you to the list. If you want some more written content, if you need more to get you ready for this college football season, we've got you covered. We're going to be dropping. Mitch wrote a fantastic preview for the Big Ten Conference. And the first half of that dropped this week. It will drop with the second half later on, I think next week. I think we're dropping that on Monday morning as we're recording this on Thursday. So there's the Substack right there, your hub for all of our written content. We're really excited to bring this to you guys. Again, it's completely free. All it costs you is your email address so that we can send it directly to your inbox. And we really hope you guys like it. We'd love your feedback on that. Hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at 3techpod, or you can always write in directly to our Gmail, 3techpod@gmail.com. Garrett, I don't know about you. I am really excited to get into the written word a little bit more this year. Obviously, we got to produce the preview magazine with our friends at the Transfer Portal CFB. Unfortunately, that will not be happening this year, but we will get to still offer you guys some awesome written content.
Yeah, we're going to get to keep writing. I know that was a fun part of last season. And so, we're going to keep writing for ourselves, and, maybe we grow our group of people and we, team up, and hey, maybe in a couple of years, or, maybe eventually we do our own preview magazine. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I guess we'll have to see where this thing goes, but I'm excited to get back into the writing part of it too, because that was a super fun part of the whole experience. And, it's fun to be just a little podcast. We just do our little video thing over here, but it's fun to do all sorts of different types of media. So yeah, it'll be good.
We're covering all our bases as we get ready for the 2024 season that promises to be a wild one. And Garrett, these 4 teams we're talking about tonight, very passionate fan bases within their own states and within each other's states. They are rivals, obviously. And I think that, whatever way this goes, we're going to hear a lot about it over the course of the season for all 4 of those teams. If it's a good season, if it's a bad season, we are going to hear a lot about it. We've obviously already talked about a couple of these teams several times this offseason, and we've gotten a lot of reaction, particularly from our friends in Norman, Oklahoma. Can't wait to see their reaction to our video whenever we get to them tonight. But Garrett, I'll leave it up to you. We have a contingent from south of the Red River. We have a contingent from north of the Red River. Where are you feeling led to start?
I was leaving it to a game time decision, Trey. We were going to decide it now. Let's stay home for a minute. Let's go south of the Red River. We'll talk about the good old boys down in Texas, and then a Texas A&M as well. We'll talk about them first.
Well, of course, we're renewing that rivalry this year. We'll start with the newcomers to the SEC. We'll give the guests the place of honor in this in this situation only. Mm-hmm. Well, let's start with the newbies to the SEC in the Lone Star State. That's the Texas Longhorns. Obviously, a great season in 2023. They finally broke through. They win the Big 12 on the way out. They go to the college football playoff. Obviously not the result that they wanted in the Sugar Bowl when they lost to Washington, but you can't give them anything other than an A+ for finally breaking through and getting it done. When a lot of people, myself included, I'll be the first to raise my hand, thought that they were just going to figure out a way to mess it up last year. And that builds a lot of momentum going into the SEC. But Garrett, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times on this podcast, and I will keep saying it in preview season. The competition is going to step up. They have a nice schedule by SEC standards. That's not really that difficult by SEC standards. But even those lookover games, they're not the same level of talent that a Baylor has, Kansas from a few years ago has, or an Iowa State, or a Cincinnati, or a UCF, or a Houston. I could keep going, right?
Yep.
Like it's a step up in talent, and they're going to realize that the first time they don't bring their A game to a road game, especially. So the over-under for the Longhorns is sitting at 10.5 wins. Now, the under is the heavy favorite. If you just look at the odds, under 10.5 is sitting at -152. Over 10.5 is you can make some money off of that. It's +124. So Vegas tends to think, if the over-under is 10.5, they tend to lean towards the under. With this schedule, Garrett, the context of our discussion tonight is what is a successful season, not necessarily how many games will they win, but just what constitutes a successful season. I look at this opening stretch. You got Colorado State, a Michigan Wolverines team on the road, yes, but they're rebuilding. They're hoping they reload, but it's probably going to be closer to a rebuild. with the amount of talent they lost to the NFL draft this year. UTSA at home can be plucky, but I don't think Texas should struggle there. ULM also. And then their opening conference stretch is fascinating to me. Mississippi State at home, Oklahoma and Red River, Georgia at home before going to Vanderbilt before an off week and the first week of November. So we'll break down the back half of that schedule because I think that's where things get tricky in a little bit. But if I'm a Texas fan, before the bye, I'm hoping we only have one loss.
Yeah, and that's, I think, extremely manageable. The cool thing for Texas is they don't play a road SEC game until they go to Vanderbilt, which means they don't really play a road SEC game until they go to Arkansas.
Yeah, there'll be more Texas fans in Nashville than Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah, and there absolutely should be. They should go party for the weekend, weekend before Halloween, and just go have a good time. So the good news for them is there's going to be a while before they really have to go on the road to a hostile environment in the SEC. That's a massive asterisk because their massive road game is week 2, and that's going to be, I think, the barometer where their season is either made or broken, because I don't think that I don't know that they're necessarily like built for failure or whatever else, but they'll have almost no margin for error if they lose that first game against Michigan. You cannot lose the first game, or I guess the second game of the season against Michigan, first real game that you're playing, but you cannot lose that game against Michigan early and then go on and, we'll just kind of slip up here. We won't look that good here. Like, we've already seen what the committee does. And yes, it's going to be a 12-team playoff, so maybe 10-2 can get you in. But with what I think the SEC is going to end up being this year, I don't know that 10-2 is going to distinguish you from the pack, because there's a bunch of teams that I think can make the case they'll be 10-2 or better. And so, looking at who's going to get bids, across the country, who's going to be grabbing some of those bids, right? There are going to be teams from the Big 12 and the ACC that are going to get bids. There's going to be a bunch of teams out of the Big 10 that have that case as well. And so, how many does the SEC get? Well, I think a lot of that's going to comparatively be hinging on that game against Michigan. And I think there's a lot of people right now that are very much discounting what Michigan is bringing to the table in that game. There are going to be obvious pieces lost. And if you're just the kind of people that are going to say, oh, well, they lost their quarterback, so, boo-hoo, Michigan's going to be bad again, you're forgetting the fact that Michigan has not been a team to really air the ball out in the past. They didn't win any of their games because they were airing it out. They won their games because they ran the football, and they still have dominant lines on both sides of the football. Texas is actually losing a few pieces on their defensive line that I'm a little bit concerned about. And so, in that game, I think your first metric for success for Texas this year is, can you beat Michigan in Ann Arbor? I think that's your first barrier for success. If you can beat Michigan, I think you can already say, hey, look, we weren't a one-year thing. It wasn't just a one and done. It wasn't a fluke. And you can actually say, we just beat the defending national champions. Whereas you lose that game and you don't have a game for a while to really prove that you're any good. And that can really spiral a team. I don't think the Texas will spiral because of that. There's not a lot of competition in that first, stretch of the schedule, but they got to go back-to-back games versus Oklahoma and then Georgia at home.
That right there is where the season's going to hinge for me. I'm of the opinion, that's brutal. And I'm of the opinion that they can recover from a Michigan loss. Mm-hmm. It's going to be difficult, especially if Michigan is, let's say Michigan's a 9-3 team, but they lose to Michigan. One of those 9 wins is Texas, right? That's going to be difficult to justify to the committee, but that swing October 12th and October 19th, back-to-back weeks, Oklahoma and in Dallas, obviously, and Georgia and Austin, that's where this season is going to swing.
They have to win at least one of those.
If you can go 1-1 there, you are sitting pretty to make the playoff. It's not a lock, because I'll go through the back half of the schedule here in just a second. It's definitely not a lock if you're 1-1, especially if you've lost that Michigan game. But I think, you got to get at least one of those. If you lose both of those, I just don't see you being high enough in the SEC standings at the end of the year, even if you beat Michigan, to jump an Ole Miss or a 10-2 Alabama or a 11-1 Georgia that beats you, right? And if Oklahoma is beating Texas
or Missouri or LSU.
Yeah, just again, guys, if you're a Texas fan, you've got to shift your focus. You will not be – the Big 12 has beat each other up and had a lot of 10-2 teams that were not elite for a decade plus. The SEC's 10-2 teams that maybe beat each other up are going to be contending for a playoff spot. And if they beat you head-to-head, they're going to be ahead of you in line, just like you guys were ahead of Alabama in line last year with identical records. So I think a successful season – back to the original question – a successful season for Texas this year is making the playoff. Yes, not winning the SEC. I don't think they need to judge themselves by winning the SEC, but did you make the college football playoff?
Also, their win-loss number, I think, is garbage. Like, I'm sorry, 10.5, like, that looks competitive, and, Texas just went to the playoff, but you've got probably 3-4 games on that schedule that you can call, like, toss-ups, and I think that you have to be realistic about it and say, if they're only giving you room to lose one, like, that's not – I don't think that's fair. And so I'm not trying to put a damper on Texas. I think Texas is going to have a good season, but I think if you're a Texas fan, 10-2, I think does a lot for you, right? I think if you go 10-2 this year –
If you make the playoff with that
– I'm going to say even if not, let's just say that it's 10-2 and your losses are to Michigan and Georgia and you're like 13, right? They're not probably going to do that to Texas. But let's say that Mizzou – jumps them and Ole Miss jumps them and there's like chaos at the top and it's Bama and Georgia and let's say there's like 4 teams that get in from the Big Ten or something like that. I don't know, but let's just say that they go 10-2 for a second. You just proved that it wasn't a 1-year thing. That's a big deal. That is a big deal if you're the Texas Longhorns. You need to be able to go ahead this year and show that you can be competitive in the SEC and that it wasn't just winning close games in the Big 12, right? It wasn't just, oh, well, we survived because we didn't have Quinn for a couple games and, there are a couple of these games that, maybe we didn't quite show up to, but we still found a way to win. If you can do that against Florida, against Arkansas, against Oklahoma even. I mean, I know they'll show up for that one, but, if there's some of these teams that you should beat and you still don't bring your A game and then find a way to beat them, that's a massive step in the right direction because you're proving that you belong where you are. If you don't show up to some of those games, it's super easy. And, teams across the SEC will tell you this, big expectations, a good previous year, and then not showing up against a couple teams you maybe should turns into 7-5 real quick.
Yep.
And so that would be like if you just lose a game to Mississippi State because you're not paying attention. You drop Oklahoma, you drop Georgia, you drop Florida, you drop A&M at the end of the year. Like those could all be games that they could drop if they're just not paying attention or they don't take it seriously. And I'm not saying that that's what Texas will do. I think that they will come out on fire. Sark has them on fire. Sark is doing a good job with that program. And so I think with all that momentum, with Quinn being a leader, I think a lot of that's going to come together. I'm just saying for a lot of Texas fans, you probably got to pump the brakes on some of these expectations because 10-2, even if you barely miss the playoff, I still think is a really, really good season for the Longhorns, and you should be happy with that.
I think you've talked me into that. I think 10-2, even if they don't make the – look, if they go 10-2, they're going to make the playoff field.
They're going to make the playoff at 10-2.
They're not going to leave out a 10-2 Texas unless some really wonky stuff happens, right?
Especially, let's put it this way, especially if you get the chance to match them up possibly in a bracket against Big 12 champ Oklahoma State or something like that.
Sure.
That would be a big deal if they were able to kind of, hey, it's the old conference. You can go – that's going to get ratings. It's going to be big. So I think – as much as we don't want to say it, the playoff is about ratings sometimes, and it is about trying to find the good matchups and trying to find the stuff that's going to go well on TV. And Texas is going to draw eyeballs forever. So the same thing that goes for teams like Ohio State, teams like Georgia, Bama, those teams are going to draw eyeballs. Texas has the same effect. And so even if maybe they don't have the resume, which again, I think 10-2 is plenty fine to get in the playoff, even if they don't have the resume, they'll probably still find a way in.
Yeah, I think so too. And so to me, just making it, because if they are 10-2, which I'm kind of penciling that in right now for Texas, 10-2 looks like a good line for me. And if you look at Vegas, that's what the over-under odds are leading you towards taking.
Yeah.
10-2 is going to put you on the back half of that S curve on the seeding. So you will have a road playoff game in the first round. So who knows what the matchup is? That's what we got to remember to ourselves too. And Mitch and I had to keep reminding ourselves that on Tuesday's show. once you get in, it's going to be the standard of success is very different for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see Texas in the SEC. Obviously, it's going to be fascinating to see. And the most fascinating game on their schedule to me, professional segue here, is that last regular season game in College Station. Garrett, as we get ready to talk about Texas A&M, I'll just give you a hot take right here. I think that game is for a playoff spot.
Ooh.
At the end of the year, there's a high potential that maybe A&M is 9-2, Texas is 10-1. They both end up 10-2, but A&M is ahead of Texas in the standings. That could be a scenario where a 10-2 Texas gets left out. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm putting so many carts before my horse, but that
SEC Mike over there?
That could be a very spicy. I think there's going to be a lot of stakes on that game, obviously with the rivalry. With that, let's shift to talking about A&M because very different situation for the Aggies. Obviously, they are in restart mode after the Jimbo Fisher era crashed and burned, simply put. They start over with Mike Elko, pay $75 million to Jimbo Fisher to not coach, and we're back at square one. And Mike Elko's done a lot of good things, but he has a tall task ahead of him to get A&M ready to go with. I think A&M has definitely had more difficult SEC schedules in their, 11 years now in the league. Right. But this is a tricky one. What I will say as we look at the schedule and the win total, so A&M's win total per FanDuel is sitting at 8.5 right now. And I know the jokes of Texas 8-4 write themselves. I get it. But over 8.5 plus 114, under 8.5 minus 142. So again, obviously the sportsbook is leading you towards betting the under with those odds, saying that's more favorable, more likely. All of what should be A&M's most difficult games are at home this year. This schedule is going to flip next year, and it's going to be absolutely brutal for the Aggies. But this year, in 2024, their 4 hardest games, their 4 most talented opponents, Notre Dame, Missouri, LSU, and Texas, all at Kyle Field. That means something. That's going to be very interesting to see. If A&M can go 2-2 in those games, and Mike Elko is truly a better coach than Jimbo Fisher, he's going to win road game. When's the last time A&M won a road game? 2021. Okay? It has been almost 3 years.
That's bizarre.
It was October 2021, the last time Texas A&M won a true road game. That's almost 3 calendar years. Okay? So
that doesn't feel real.
It doesn't. It's really sad. And the road games this year, their first one is extremely difficult at Florida. I think that's going to be a fascinating game. The winner of that game, I know Florida has a huge matchup week 1 against Miami. We've talked a lot about that game. But this week 3 game, the first conference game for both teams, might be more pivotal even than that one for both of the trajectories of this season. But after that Florida game, they play at Mississippi State after a bye week. Mississippi State is going to be lower level in the conference. They play at South Carolina. I'm not super high on the Gamecocks this year. And they play at Auburn. That's it as far as road conference games go. So the schedule sets up very favorably to beat that 8.5 number. That's not what we're asking, though. What is successful for Texas A&M in 2024?
I'm going to say it, and I don't want Aggie fans to be mad at me. And we had a bunch of y'all show up for one of our episodes recently. And if you check up here, or up there, I got my shelf with some A&M stuff on it. Understand, Aggie fans, I'm not trying to trash on us or nothing like that. But I think a successful season at A&M is 8-4.
No.
I'm not trying to be weird.
No.
I'm not trying to be. No, look at it, though. Look at the schedule. Okay, look at the schedule. Okay, if you lose to Notre Dame, Missouri, LSU, Texas, I think most Aggies would understand that in year 1 that makes sense. Here's another couple of things. Connor Wigman is extremely talented at the quarterback spot. He still hasn't played that much football. And I think he's got all the talent in the world to be one of the top quarterbacks. I think all this, there's a lot of weird media headlines of, A&M's Connor Wigman going to be the top quarterback or a Heisman. I'm like, let's slow down on that. He's plenty talented. He could get there. It wouldn't shock me if he got to that level, but I don't think you can count on that from a guy who hasn't still played that much football. I understand there's an injury that's part of that. He hadn't played that much football. He played a little bit his freshman year because he needed to because of injuries ahead of him. And then he got injured, like the third or fourth game last season? And just, I mean, that was it. And so you have to consider that. Also, new offensive system. That can be really tough on a new quarterback. So we'll have to look at all of that. I think there's a lot of good pieces. The one thing I'm really concerned about is there is almost zero depth at wide receiver and linebacker. And there's some good players there. I think that Muhsin Muhammad is an extremely talented wide receiver. I think Ja'Day Walker did a lot of good things last year. And on the other side, in the linebacker core, Tarian York, we talked about him. He's going to be one of the best linebackers in the country this year. But who else is stepping up? I mean, Noah Thomas is really talented at the wide receiver spot. He could be really good. After that, it's Cyrus Allen, like Micah Tease, right? Like there's options.
Guys, highly rated guys, but have not
proved
yet.
Hadn't proved anything, right? And so, in the same way that I would look at Texas, that we just talked about, and say, hey, they got a lot of guys that I got question marks about because Isaiah Bond's coming from Bama, but what's he going to look like at Texas, and who else is there? I'm going to ask the same questions about A&M. You got some good top of the line stuff, but there's not a lot of depth, and so if you're week 3 at Florida and Muhsin Muhammad goes down with an injury, what are you doing at the wide receiver spot? Like, who are you throwing passes to? You got to throw passes to somebody. Connor Wingman can be good, and if his guys can't get separation, they can't get separation. And so, again, let me frame this whole thing. Aggie fans, 8-4 is good if it looks consistent. If you're scoring points and you're not blowing up and 1 week you're running the football well, and the next week you're not, and you don't show up and score 14 out the gates in a quarter, and then you don't score again until the fourth quarter, or the defense shows up and you can pretty consistently stop teams, and every now and then they get you, but you kind of get. If 8-4 looks consistent, I think a lot of Aggie fans are going to go, okay, that's fine. It's not happy, but I think that's fine. Now, if you're talking like success levels, 9-3, 10-2, I think is realistic for what A&M can expect. I don't think that A&M has the ability to do anything close to undefeated or realistically make the playoff, right? Anything can happen. Go win against Notre Dame week 1 and we can talk. But Missouri is a really good football team, and they're going to be bringing a very talented quarterback and a very experienced quarterback and some daggum playmakers to Kyle Field. LSU is still very talented. I'm not necessarily as high on them as a lot of people are, but LSU is still very talented. And Garrett Nussmeier should not be, blinked at. And they still got dogs on both sides of the football. And yeah, the Texas Longhorns are a dang good team. And even though, they may not quite be as good as they were last year, even though they got some new pieces, you're still getting them at the end of the season when they'll have all of that figured out. You'll have all of your stuff figured out too. But Texas will have everything figured out, and all these new pieces and new faces that need to get implemented will be. And so I'm not saying they're for sure going to lose all those games, but if you split those games and go 2-2, I think you're ecstatic if you're an Aggie fan, if you can take care of business along the way. Now, what's not successful is if in the same season you beat Texas, but then you lose to Arkansas and Mississippi State, and that's how you get to 9-3 or something like that. That's not successful because that's inconsistency. Jimbo Fisher could have done that. Jimbo Fisher did that. He beat Bama, right? He beat Bama a couple years ago, and that wasn't a successful season because he lost so many other games and there were injuries and everything else. And so, again, I think consistency is what you're looking for if you're A&M, and if your ceiling is your ceiling, it is what it is. If you're just not talented enough this year, that's fine. Go build up your roster, go kill it in the portal, and show up next year.
8-4 is not successful for Texas A&M. I'm just gonna say that because that means you either. I'm gonna use your argument against you here a little bit because that means you either went 0-4 in those 4 home games. That's unacceptable to me. First of all, I think it's I know it's year 1.
Sure.
If you go 0-4 against the only teams worth a damn you're playing at home, that's unacceptable. You have to get at least 1 and probably 2 of those for me to say you did good with your home schedule. that maybe that's asking too much of Mike Elko, but I don't think that you said Jimbo Fisher could do that. Jimbo Fisher could go 0-4 at home.
He
and
did.
And if you don't go 0-4 at home, that means, like you said, you're losing to some mediocre teams on the road. Maybe you drop to Florida in a desperation situation, your first road trip under Elko.
Sure.
But then you're either losing to South Carolina, Arkansas in a neutral venue, Mississippi State, or the other one's losing
at Auburn.
At Auburn. Auburn, you shouldn't lose at Auburn. Your pass rush should make Peyton Thorne have a nightmare day.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is consistency. There's a lot of shoulds on there. I think that there's 4 teams that can make a good case to beating A&M this year. And I don't know. Yes, they're all at home. And maybe it looks different. Maybe by midway through the season, right, when you get to LSU at the end of October, maybe at that point you're saying, hey, Connor Wigman and co., you got to have it figured out, right? Like Colin Klein's offense has got to be figured out at that point. You know, maybe you're more forgiving with an early loss against Notre Dame, even maybe an early loss at Florida if it means that you clean up against, Mizzou and LSU and then Auburn, maybe play Texas close, right? Maybe that's how you get to 9-3 is, Notre Dame, Florida, Texas. That would be a good season in my mind, right? If you're
9-3 is fine. 9-3, I think is you cannot argue that'd be successful. Go win a 10th game in the bowl game. You're winning 10 games for the first time since I think 2012, right? Obviously the COVID season is an asterisk, but you got to win 9 for me. Like for it to be successful, I know it's year one. I know it's laying the groundwork for the future. Talent on the field is not the problem for Texas A&M. They lost some guys in the portal. They replaced a lot of them in the portal with more experienced guys and guys that are better cultural fits for what Mike Elko is.
Well, and frankly, I'd rather take some of those guys over the guys they lost. Like if you're asking me, would you rather have the Big Ten sack leader or Walter Nolan, who hasn't tried all that hard? I'll take the Big Ten sack leader. I'm fine with that on my defensive line. I know it's a different style of player, but I'll take that on my defensive line and give somebody else a shot that wants to. And so what I don't want to do, though, is I don't want to be, hyperbolic or unrealistic with any of this, right? Like I don't think A&M fans will be happy if it's 8-4. I just think there'd be a lot of understanding. Like, yeah, you know what? Okay.
Yeah, not for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's time. The talent is there, and if Elko is truly a better coach, they need to win 9 games.
Sure.
I know it's year one. If he is truly a better coach, if this staff as a whole, I'm not talking about just Elko, but I'm talking about Colin Klein as an upgraded offensive coordinator and Elko running the defense. I know he has a defensive coordinator, but Elko is going to run the defense. If that combo is truly better and it wasn't a waste of $75 million to fire Jimbo Fisher early, you need to win 9 games this year.
Sure. Well, then let me ask you a question on that then. Of those 4 games, Notre Dame, Mizzou, LSU, Texas, how would you rank those in terms of A&M should win this game?
Just on the field, I think they match up best with Missouri and LSU. They played LSU close last year in Baton Rouge. It got away from them late, and they replaced the secondary talent that let it get away from them late.
That's very true.
I'm not high on LSU or Missouri's defense, and that scares me for a team. I know the offense can be great at both of those places, but playing at Kyle Field, you have to pack your defense. The way that A&M has been beaten at Kyle Field is less from being blitzed offensively, but more from defensive prowess and shutting down A&M's offense. I don't know that either Mizzou I don't think people are talking enough about how much Mizzou lost on defense this past year. And I think they match up best with Mizzou. I think the second best matchup is LSU. After that, it's kind of a toss-up between Texas and Notre Dame for me. I have Ari Wasserman at The Athletic predicted Notre Dame to go 12-0 today on his podcast. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know, man. That's optimistic.
If you were asking me, if you flipped those games, I would actually be more likely to pick A&M in both of those. If you're going into a rowdy Kyle Field week 1 and Texas is still trying to figure out who their wide receiver weapons are, what their defensive line rotation is, all that stuff, and A&M, you don't have a lot of film on them running this offense. I actually like A&M's chances more if Texas was week 1 versus the end of the year. And I would like their chances against Notre Dame more if it was at the end of the year versus the beginning of the year, because I think Notre Dame is going to be a more polished product week 1. So that's a very long-winded way of saying the path to 2-2 in those games is beating Mizzou and LSU. I think they can do it. If they do, that gives you room for one slip up on the road. I want to see them do it on the road. Successful to me is showing that you can win on the road. And you're probably going to lose at least one game on the road, but you need to clean up the rest of them. You need to play a complete game on the road and win some dang road games.
Would you right now pick A&M to beat either Mizzou or LSU? Just like right now, as you're sitting here, you say, oh yeah, they'll win that game.
Let me tell you, because I can tell you my model that I'm teasing for preview season. I can tell you exactly what the spreads are in that model.
Well, because my big idea here is just, I think if you're looking just at what games they should win, what games they shouldn't win, I don't know that individually I pick them to win any of those games. You're right that they should win one of those 4, right? They should go at least 1-3 in those games to make it, acceptable to fans. You shouldn't lose all your important games at home. But I'm having a hard time. I guess it's maybe my thing. I'm having a hard time figuring out which of those games I would say, oh, just right now, if you made me pick in a vacuum, A&M versus Missouri, I think I'm going Missouri, right? I think I like the offense a little bit. If in a vacuum you make me say A&M versus LSU, I think by that point in the season, maybe LSU. And so, like, again, anything could happen, right? It could turn out that Colin Klein is, the next coming of, insert Lane Kiffin or one of those, and he's an amazing offensive coordinator and he's going to turn into this absolute juggernaut, and A&M's offense is going to go screaming up the field. But I just I'm kind of in a wait and see, right? He did good at Kansas State. Does that translate to the SEC? I don't know. So I don't know if I'd pick them in any of those games individually.
So we're way over time on A&M. I apologize if you're not interested in A&M. This is a very passionate fan discussion, and we don't want to lose that soul on this podcast. So I'll just tell you real quick before we move on to north of the Red River. Notre Dame, this is combining the SP Plus and home field advantage. Notre Dame is a 1.5-point favorite against A&M. Mizzou's about a 1-point favorite. Okay. LSU is about a 3-point favorite, and Texas is about a 7.2 point favorite.
Right.
7.5-point favorite.
So that's kind of where I'm saying, like, I think in each of those games I might lean the other way. And so I'm saying if you lose those games, but let's say you lose them all real close, and they showed a lot of fight, and the offense looked good and scored a bunch of points, and you're losing these games, like, and all the totals are in the 30s, right? You're just not quite getting – I don't know. Like, I feel like that's something that can be stomached if it looks consistent.
It would leave me with a really bad taste in my mouth. I'm not going to lie to you. Like 8-4, we've seen that before. I want to see something better than that to be considered successful. I need 9 wins, and we disagree on that. That's okay. We'll see what happens on the field.
Before we leave, just to make sure, I'm a bona fides right here. Okay, guys, that's my ring. I'm not hating on A&M. I'm not an A&M hater, right? All my Aggie fans out there, I'm not hating on it. I want them to go win every game this season, and I'll be there for a bunch of them. But I can't sit here and realistically say, like, oh yeah, success is 9 wins when I mean last couple seasons have been kind of awful. Right, last couple you go win 8 wins, get in a somewhat okay bowl game against a decent opponent and win it. We hadn't won a bowl game since the Orange Bowl in the COVID season. So I'd be okay with that.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how they do. And I don't know. Like, there's so many unknowns with this Texas A&M team. And I still have the opinion. Like, I know I teased it earlier. I think that game at the end of November could be for a college football playoff spot.
I hope you're right, man. That would make that game so electric. Could you imagine that game with like a couple of 9-2s or something like that? It'd be a lot of fun.
Electric. The guy that put his tickets up for like $220,000 each.
He'd get his money's worth. Yep.
If it's that. Well,
hey, Drake or Ted Cruz showing up just to ruin it.
Well, he showed up for the George Strait concert, so
there you go.
0-12 income. Well, Garrett, that was a great discussion about Texas and Texas A&M. I think we ran out of time. I'm really sorry to our friends north of the Red River. You're going to have to wait to hate us for maybe next week. Maybe we can get a bonus episode in. Breaking down those schedules here relatively soon.
We'll need something to talk about while Mitch is, unavailable.
Exactly. So we'll get to Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. apologies on my end. That's being a bad host for going too long on A&M.
We're having fun over here. We're having fun.
We're having a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, and we will get to Oklahoma and Oklahoma State next time. Guys, don't forget to find our links on Twitter for those surveys. Enter for your chance to win a $150 gift card to Home Field Apparel. 1 entry per survey that you fill out, just ranking the teams in order of finish that you think. We've gotten some great feedback on that so far. It's been really fun for you guys to share those lists with us. Share the list, show us what you think, and we can't wait to use that to break down our order for our actual preview season. So, guys, make sure you're following us on Twitter at 3TechPod and Instagram at 3TechPod. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. And for Garrett Turney and Mitch Mason, I'm Trey Reeves. We'll see you next time.
Gracious him. How about